Hi guys, yes, it's Homes with Jones, and today we are joined with Michael Mahy, who's a transformational coach. Michael, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Nathan. Thanks for having me here. Any
Yeah,
opportunity to chat and discuss and bring up some important stuff, I'm all for it. So thank you.
that's it, no doubt. I've known you for a while, and we connected over the first lockdown, and we just, connected and saw how things were going for each other and stuff. And it's been basically like a year, and a lot has happened with lockdown. We've come in at lockdown, we've gone out of lockdown. Uh, it's all mishmash and no one really knows what's going on or what's going to happen. And we've been in like this like limbo. How has lockdown been for you?
Yeah, lockdown for me has been it's been a process, like everything else. Like every emotion is a process, whether you realize it or not. And I think lockdown, because I'm so determined to maintain a certain level of connection with myself and with others, that on the first lockdown, so to speak, I kind of almost ignored it. Right? I was almost like denying it was happening. I was looking at people in masks and people running in the street and running away from each other and lines out the supermarket, and just it wasn't really sinking in, right? But then as time started to go on, then I started to actually internally digest this new normal, And but I think at the end of the day, long story short, I think I've grown from the process, and I've picked up skills from the process, which I even noticed, like when you mentioned the time span, a year, I was just like, wow, since we first really spoke right in the beginning, because your work is physical, face-to-face confrontational. With coaching, yes, you can do it online, but that was never how it was for me either. It was more face-to-face, and sorry, so much has happened. So yeah, I just have learned a lot, and and appreciated the lockdown time, to build new skills, and so.
For sure. I mean, I'm the same, the first lockdown, I buried my head in the sand, hoping it would blow over, and it wasn't. But then once we realized that it wasn't going to blow over, we had to, adapt and overcome. And that's why I've been speaking and reaching out to other professionals, about how they've found it and how they've coped and how they've moved forward, because I think there's lessons in it for everybody that we can find ourselves, but also that we can share and other people can connect with and learn. And I think it's important to highlight those learnings and to share them. So what's been the main one for you, would you say?
Yeah, I was thinking while you were talking, and there's something really interesting about this whole COVID pandemic and the lockdown is actually, I think, and even though we have, are quarantining and isolating and social distancing, actually it's a bit of a paradox. I think it's actually brought people closer together, because we are all suffering from the same fears, and we're all suffering from the same feelings of isolation and alienation and loss of income. And the struggles are very common. So even though the struggles physically push us apart, I think spiritually has brought us together, right? Because what you were talking about, and the way I've seen you adapt, the way I have had to adapt, the way of, especially like companies in martial arts and gyms and pubs, restaurants, the whole West End, all of these that rely on human connection. Because we are all suffering from the same dilemma, is actually brought people together. And that's such a huge paradox, because social distancing and quarantining and isolating has been the underlying theme, but yet still, I feel it's brought the country, even the world, closer together. And so I think that's been a big learning for me. And I actually haven't even thought about it in those terms until right this moment when I was actually just listening to you. So yeah, that's actually my biggest learning from it.
For sure. Me too, when you were saying that we've had to change our delivery, that was like a big, wow, because I'm not really you know, right now we're in my kitchen. You know what I mean? I'm at home. I like to get out and about. I like to meet people. I'm very tactile in my approach, and now I've had to adapt and stuff. But I've had to still keep a smile, and it can be done. It took me personally a while to realize it can be done, and that's why I thought it's a great way to reach out to yourself, and for you to not so much talk me like through how I did it, but how other people can do it as well. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to take you a year. It took me a good 6 months before I was like, right, you know, it's not going to blow over, you know. And there's like little tips and hints that you can have that you can share. Because when I look at you, I read your LinkedIn little blurb, if I may, I'm going to read it out. I am a transformational coach who helps professionals who have experienced emotional setbacks in their work or personal lives to discover new purpose and go after it with confidence, passion, and self-belief. You know, that's you. I mean, I know I said it smooth, but that was you. That's you right there. So
yeah, but delivered it. You delivered it, so go for it. Yeah.
So yeah, when I read that and it sounds nice and smooth. So the question I have is how? How do you do this?
Yeah, so what I was actually, to answer that and also to speak back to, you know, what you went through, as you said, it took you that 6-month period to really settle in and realize it's not going to blow over and all that. But what was really actually happening was that you have, and what I do for my clients is to start to create this sort of mindset that a challenge is an opportunity to actually, like if you're a photographer and you think about focusing a camera, right? It's to actually focus in on your, and I know that people don't like to use the word weak points, but focus in on the bits that you have challenge with. So if you have a challenge around, you know, using technology, or a fear or some kind of phobia around speaking to people just, you know, face to face. Because the thing about it is when you are interacting in a physical environment, you can show up and you can be distracted. You can use different ways to turn your head and look around and hide and avoid. But when you're in front of a camera, face to face with somebody, you're seeing everything, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and it puts people on the spot. It makes them self-conscious, and they have other issues to deal with in terms of space. Like, where do I find this space to separate my personal life, my private life, from my work life? How do I keep my family, you know, separate from where I'm working? So, you know, because you have the whole space issue. So when it comes to overwhelm by definition is about feeling trapped, feeling disoriented, feeling like you have no options. So one of the first things a tool that I created, I wrote a short ebook, and it's called Overcoming Overwhelm. And within that tool, you know, it gives people some actual physical practices to put into place to start to, first of all, create space, to find something to ground them in their breath in a particular environment, and to create a mental process of remembering your wins, connecting to that energy and that person who you were and still are, that has achieved and succeeded and had happiness and fulfillment and connection and joy. So that I really just get people really back into themselves, and also what's next. And the what's next is speaking towards a vision of yourself that is even bigger than what you are right now, right? Because there's always a what next. Nothing exists in a vacuum. So you always have to create, you change and evolve into something else, right? So so that's kind of my process, is really looking at, first of all, getting grounded, creating space, recognizing, you know, looking at your values and recognizing where your strengths are and really appreciating them, and then becoming somebody else, transforming. And the difference between transform and change is that change can be temporary, but transformation speaks towards permanent, right? Becoming someone else, right? So
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that actually, and that's a good distinction and definition. You know,
Mm.
So change is temporary, transformation is permanent,
Yeah,
lasting
it speaks.
change.
Yeah, because it's I mean, okay, for example, even on a literal level, you can somebody could say to you, "Oh, Nathan, when you're out in t-shirt and jeans, that's not a good enough image for you. I want you to start wearing sports jackets and kind of sophisticated stuff." And you're like, okay, so you changed how you dress, but if you change the way you dress or how you appear, but yet still your mindset hasn't changed and your habits haven't changed, then the outfit is not going to speak to the image that you're trying to work on. So the transformation comes is when you start to think that way and change your habits to step into that new mode. Then everything, so you could still come out in jeans and t-shirt but still have a different aura, a different image, everything, because it's internal work as well as physical work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I,
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. And I suppose now that we've got more choice as we're coming out of lockdown, more things are opening, or the restrictions are easing up. It's easier to make a choice to change those habits. How do you find transforming when you're told to do something else, and this is like a problem that I had, but I can't do this because I have to do that, and I felt trapped, and
Mm.
as well as everybody else, no doubt, on some form on that spectrum. So how can we, now that things are opening up, I've got used to this way, how can I get used to that way without it being a yo-yo?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What
I see.
tips and advices or strategies would you have for that?
First and foremost, is the word. The biggest thing coming out of that is choice, and conscious choice, and starting to realize that we are always in a state of choice. And I know some people who may push back and challenge that and say, because of my situation, I don't have any choice. But actually, even if your choice is not a physical choice, like in terms of, you only have one option, there's always more than one, because your perspective, you have at least 5 different perspectives and 5 different ways of receiving and reacting to your situation, right? So the choice might not be just like a physical, oh, I want the red, blue, or green, but you can choose to react from a place of exploration, creativity, innovation, learning, growing, which is what we all did, especially people like yourself who work in a very face-to-face physical industry, personal instructor, gym, martial arts, the whole thing, right? So you still have a choice of how you react, and the way you react will then dictate the way that you think, the way you feel, and your eventual outcome. Right? So now that everything is opening up, many people I've spoken to, have actually, appreciated the lockdown period, because even though they went through a hard process adjusting initially, they actually they did adapt, and they have learned new skills and new practices, the ability to be more still, the ability to spend more time in your own company, or ability to actually spend more time with your family and actually be a good father, brother, girlfriend, whatever, work on those things that need working on. So you, in many ways, if the time spent in lockdown was used in a progressive way, you can actually come into this physical opening out of society in a better place, much more self-aware,
For sure.
much more aware also of what you want and what you don't want, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, right?
Right.
So even that simple 50-50 choice, what I want, what I don't want, that's just like one choice, like what I don't want, but it's a massive thing, massive. Even some people learn what to say yes and what to say no to, right? I mean, because some people can't say no, they just say yes, 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 yes. And no, they may even learn, all they might have learned is like, you know what, I'm going to say no to that, that, and that, Why? Because it gives me more freedom. It gives me more peace of mind.
For sure. Okay, so on that kind of like topic, what would be your top 3 questions that one would ask themselves to help them get themselves grounded, or to help them to explore not so much their choices, but to explore the what's next as a consequence of their choice? What top 3 questions would you have to ask somebody to just open their mind a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, if I had a client coming into what I call a discovery call, and a discovery call is like the first call that we have together. We don't know each other, but that person has a challenge, and they want to work on that challenge. One of the first things I ask them is, from the time you book the call and now you're on the call, right? What have you learned about yourself between the time that you actually book this call and now that we are having the call? Because when you actually reach out for help, when you actually say, I would like some help, that right away is a fundamental shift, emotional shift right away. Even if you don't have any answers or whatever, you've actually decided, you've made a decision to ask for help. And then you start to, even for me, then, if I'm going to see a physiotherapist, if I have a challenge and I ask for help, then I start to actually try to work it out in my head on my way going to get help. It's almost like this self-preservation, I can do it kind of thing kicks in, and then you just got to be aware of that growth. And then the next question I would ask is, whatever the challenge is, what is important about that for you? Why is that so important? It might seem obvious, but what is so important about that? And it forces people actually to go a little bit deeper into their situation, because they may actually find, some people might say, you know what? It's not even really about my boss, It's not about my boss being a bully. It's about me being a coward. That's what it's actually about. And that's huge. And then you'll be like, okay, so what? And then the next question will be like, what is the impact that this is having on your life, right? What's the impact? Let's get into detail of where is it showing up. A lot of people have issues, challenges around relationships, or challenges around getting a promotion, or whatever it is. And when they recognize that challenge, they only focus on that. So another question I'd ask, I know that's more than 3, but another question, that where else in your life is this showing up? Mm-hmm. Because how you operate and how you do one thing is how you do many, many things, because it's the same mindset. So all of the questions are designed around getting really, really clear, right, on who you are, what you want, where do you want to go, what's the ideal outcome.
I like that, actually. And you're giving me food for thought, so I'm just like, yeah. But I want to put it on the flip side. I'm going to play devil's advocate, because I like what you're saying. However, the one question that's in my mind is how. Yeah, I'm going to change, and I can identify these things, but how? How can I get it? How?
Well, I mean, that's fine. That's cool.
Whatever.
And I haven't even I haven't even let you finish your question properly. But one thing that's interesting about that is, and it's very, very relevant, because everybody wants to know how. But the how for you and the how for other people will obviously slightly differ. Okay. And like I said, the first thing that you want to do is to get clear on where you are within this whole gauge. Some people like to gauge it with numbers. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how uncomfortable it is, how much pain is this? And if you say it's 8 or 9, then what are you willing to do in order to change that? What's the ideal outcome? Like what's the perfect, and then you start to actually create the how yourself, because I can't know how. I can only show you options, and there's something in you that's going to resonate with the how. Because people, for example, people think in pictures, right? We don't think in words, we think in pictures. I could say to you, so Nathan, what do you, I mean, you said that you're having this call in your kitchen, all right? And I would say to you, so I'm not saying that that's an issue, but I just use it as an example, right? So if that was a challenge, then where would you like to have the club, right? And then you might say, oh, I want to have it in this big soundproof booth in London. And I'd be like, okay, why? Why is that important? And then you might answer me and say, for profiling and all that. I said, okay. I said, well, what's your main what's so important about this process that we're going through? And you might say to me, oh, well, it's reaching out and impacting people and showing people that, I'm a regular guy and I really want to help people. And I said, okay, well, you look like a regular guy trying to help people right there in your kitchen. So why is it so important to go to London, right? And then you might actually figure I don't need to go to London, So anyway, it's really just getting the individual to take responsibility for their situation and start to do the creative work for themselves with me as a guide to help them.
So yeah, and I get that, and I like that, and I think, and one of my main things is whenever I'm working with my clients, whatever, is like, look, number one, you got to be honest with yourself. Lay it as it is. There's no point hiding things or downplaying it. How is it? Yeah, and that's number one. And then secondly is take responsibility. So for me, you've hit the nail on the head. You've got to be honest and open, and then you can root that plan out and take responsibility with it, because ultimately, the buck falls with ourselves, And I like what you're saying, and my brain's ticking away, and even though I'm talking to you, I'm really thinking about I think about myself anyway, but I'm thinking about myself in my situation, and hopefully, the listeners out there, their cogs are turning as well, So no, that's great. That's great, Michael. Where
and there's something this. Sorry, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, where can people find you, to find out more and stuff? But if you were about to say something, please, by all means.
Yeah, so I'll cover the contact bit. So basically, my ebook, Overcoming Overwhelm, is something that if people reach out to me, I have got a website, michaelmahy.co.uk. It's just basically, you could even put Michael Mahy Life Coach into Google and it'll come out with my website. On the website, there's a download link for the ebook, and there's also a Calendly invite, so you can go in and look at my schedule and book, complimentary consultation calls, and the usual Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you put Michael Mahy Life Coach, you'll be able to find me basically, and then you can go through the process of contacting me. And we can do some emailing, we can do some texting, or we can just book that complimentary call and start to have a conversation. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the conversation. If a really famous marketing guy says, well, look, Michael, if you're not having conversations, you're not growing your business. Even if people are not coming in and it's not to say that every conversation is about money, but the fact is, if you're not interacting and you're not speaking to people, and all you're doing is building websites and brochures and business cards, that's all right, but it's a human relations game that we are in. So if you're not having conversations, you're not building your business. So that's where it comes down to. And before we end off, I just wanted to say, because you're a performer, and one of the clients, like type of people I come across, have how would you speak towards performance anxiety? Coming from the stage that you perform on, the level you perform on, and the type of sport that you're in the martial arts, what advice could you give me to pass on to some of my clients who suffer from like performance anxiety to do with public speaking or stuff like that?
Yeah, I've got quite a few different liners, but the main quote that comes to me, and I always ask myself this. And I've worked my way up and up the ladder. I've fallen down the ladder, gone up the ladder, gone to the next. Do you know what I mean? All the different ways. I've put my heart and soul into it. Trials and tribulations, yada 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 yada. And at every stage, I've asked myself, have I only come this far to only come this far? You know, and that's like, even at the very grassroots of it, it's like, why have I committed to do this? You know what I mean? Have all this time and effort and the sacrifice that I've made, you know, I could have gone here, I could have done this. Have I let that go for it to be in vain because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Or, I've wanted to quit fighting. You know, I've wanted to not even walk out or sign the contract. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, well, hang on. If you think you're the best, and I've looked at myself in the mirrr, I'm like, look, if you think you're the best, Nathan, yeah, you have to do this because it shouldn't be a problem. You know what I mean? And I look myself in the mirror, you know, and then even when it's tough, have I come this far to only come this far? You know, and we always want to finish whatever you start. And I've been brought up, if you've got to start something, you've got to finish it. You know, you know, even if I don't finish well, I have to finish it. And for me, it's you got to finish what you started. You know.
That's beautiful, and what comes to me as well is a quote that I heard recently by a guy called Jim Quick, and he is not really a quote, but what he said was that the brain, right, your mind does not like open loops, right? So the brain doesn't like to be introduced to a challenge or some kind of stressor and not solve it and just leave it hanging. Like, is she gonna call me? You know, am I going to fight? Am I going to give up? So you need to come out, you know, you need to completely circle, as you just said, right? And what I'm hearing is that level of sacrifice and that level of self-belief and that story that you've been telling yourself and building yourself on for all of these years, you're thinking like, am I ready to let that go and just say, no, I'm not. Therefore, I'm going in. If you're ready to let it go at some point, we're ready to retire and hang up the gloves, and fine. But I'm hearing what you were saying is that, you know, when you come this far and invest this much, it must be because you really want it. Therefore, you complete. You start it and you finish it with honor, with integrity, and that's the best. That's all you could do.
No, for sure. And if I'm honest, it was that talk that got me out of this lockdown. You know,
right.
For my own integrity, it was like, wait, hang on a minute. I've got this to do, that to do. I want to do this. Like, it's not going to happen if I'm like this, you know? And
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there's other things I want to do or other things that take precedence, and you've got to prioritize. But when it comes to it and it gets a little bit hard and I want to back out, it's like, wait, you know, at least give it a crack first. Give it your
before you end off, I offer you like a little sequel to this. And as you said, you got other things that you want to do. So when you embark on that next journey, we're going to jump back on another, you know, public forum like this, and we're going to discuss that next part of your journey. Yeah.
Amen to that. I like that.
Cool.
Michael, It's been a pleasure, you know, and anybody out there, you know, hit Michael up. You know, when I post this, I'll put your details on there and I'll tag you in it as well. So there's a direct link to that. It's been helpful for myself, and I hope you know, people can connect and relate to the things that we've touched upon. It's been a pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
Man, and thank you for the opportunity, Nathan. Honestly, yeah, it's been amazing to share this time with you. That's man. Brilliant. Thank you.
Take care.
You too, man. See ya.